This is Kayla Carey, and this is my end of Module 5 podcast. In this podcast, I'm going to discuss a specific applied issue and the ethics surrounding it. The specific applied issue I'm going to discuss is gene editing. I chose this topic because my research project in my lab uses gene editing, and it is an important topic to me. We create biomedical models with pigs, and I think it's really important because we can use those models to further research human diseases and find cures. So there are both moral and political considerations at play with this topic. The moral considerations are the effects on animals and potentially on humans. The implications on future generations and their consent is also a moral consideration because gene editing occurs at the embryonic stage. Lastly, availability based on price is a moral consideration. Will only wealthy people be able to obtain this technology, and will that cause a further divide between the wealthy and the poor? Political considerations would be funding for the research because the government will provide the money and the FDA would have to approve the use. This issue deserves special consideration in the 21st century because it is a growing technology and has so much potential for changing the future. It is also a very controversial issue, mainly because people do not understand how it works or its implications. The technology can allow people who have genetic diseases to have healthy babies. Also, many people think this technology will only be used to create designer babies, which it does not have to be used in that extreme. It is a useful tool to avoid genetic disease or other issues in the embryonic stage. The misunderstanding of this technology is why this issue needs more consideration. J.S. Mill is the utilitarianism moral philosopher that we discussed in this course. He believed that consequences are more important than motive. Mill also has a supreme principle of morality called the greatest happiness principle, in which he states, actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. Mill ignores the moral side of decision making and only focuses on outcome. I believe that Mill would approach this issue by assessing the outcomes. The outcomes of gene editing can be bad, but with enough testing, it would be totally safe for human use. I think Mill would allow the use of this technology because the outcome would promote happiness. According to Mill, animals can only experience lower pleasure and humans can feel higher pleasure. According to this statement, I believe that the ends would justify the means. That means that Mill would approve of testing on animals in order to allow humans to obtain a higher pleasure as an outcome. Robert Nozick was one political philosopher that we have discussed in this course. He believes in a minimal state and people not being slaves to government. Nozick believes that in a free society, the result is the product of many individual decisions which the different individuals involved are entitled to make. In the minimal state, Nozick describes maintaining a monopoly over all use of force except that necessary in immediate self-defense and excluding private retaliation for wrong and exaction of compensation, but it provides protection and enforcement services only to those who purchase its protection and enforcement policies. I believe that Nozick would not allow the use of gene editing if it is government funded, which it is. The NIH and other government agencies provide millions of dollars for projects using gene editing tools such as CRISPR-Cas9, which is what my lab uses, and we receive funding. If the government did not fund the use, then I do not think Nozick would have a problem with the use of this technology because it is not a threat to self-defense. The individual would decide if they want to use it, and it has nothing to do with property, which is the last point of Nozick's theory. So what should we do regarding this issue? I think the public should consider the tremendous implications that this technology has and consider the ethics instead of fearing its potential. I think we need to support the testing and the use of this technology and keep in mind all aspects so it can be used in society but not become too powerful. I believe the potential to provide happy, healthy children to people who have genetic diseases in their family is very important. I also believe the use of biomedical models for xenotransplantation would be a monumental outcome for this technology by providing people with much needed organs. I like Mill's view based on outcome because almost everything goes through animal testing and research because we need to make sure it's safe first. Although I do think the outcomes are important, we should also include moral reasoning when deciding whether or not to proceed. When I evaluate the ethics of this technology, I consider Kant's deontology. I agree with Kant that one should consider motive. I think Kant would agree with me that the motive for using this technology is good. The motive to help others and provide healthy humans is more important than the negative outcomes that may arise during the trials at the beginning of its application. Some counter-arguments might be that the technology is too powerful and it would be interfering with biology. They would argue that this technology may lead to creating clones, which has already been done anyway, and creating designer babies that are perfect in any way. However, regulations and the government will prevent that from happening. With regards to the wealth divide, like with all things, at first it might be very expensive, but then it should level out. Also, since it is a medical procedure, some insurance may cover it, and eventually it could become a norm, just like regular prenatal appointments and care. Overall, I think this technology is a very controversial subject, but if we keep morals in mind and apply regulations, there is a promising future for the use of gene editing. This is Kayla Carey, and this is my end of Module 5 assignment. Thanks for listening. These are the citations for the sources I used to make this podcast.